Oh, yeah. Looking good, looking good.
How much time did we go?
We're on now. We're live. Ready?
We're ready. Ready?
We are ready. Yes, sir.
Five, four, three, two.
Sorry. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Dana being Dana. This is a very special show. Happy Father's Day to my guests and all the fathers out here. Thank you all so much. I'm very excited about this show, and I apologize in advance. I'm a little bit under the weather, but the show must go on, and I appreciate you all being here. I feel like I sound like a little like a man. Hello. Happy Father's Day.
A very pretty man.
But I am so excited. My friend Curtis Valentine came in all the way from D.C., and it's just been really nice hanging out. We've got connections on this panel, which is awesome. It's so cool that people know each other that we didn't know knew each other, and it's just a lot of love. I just want to thank my sponsors, Gary Harris from GH Private Wealth Management, 800-591-6004, as well as the Homecoming Challenge. Please register for the Homecoming Challenge. It's a campaign to go back and give back. All my brothers have signed up, and everybody is supporting that, so please do that. I also want to thank my friends at Morehouse and Spelman College. A lot of people have been sharing this show, sharing the marketing for this show, and it's just a very important topic because we are talking about fathers, and we're talking about specifically the Fatherhood Forum. So I want to start off, I'll start off with you, Curtis. Can you tell us your name and who you are and your role in education?
Thank you. I'm glad to be here in the Chi. I am Curtis Valentine, son of Curtis Valentine and father of Curtis Valentine. A name is important to me for all the reasons you would imagine. I am the co-founder of the Fatherhood Forum, which is an opportunity to really raise the level of engagement of fathers in my school system in Prince George's County, Maryland, the 17th largest school system in America, to really increase participation. We, in our system, we have roughly 65-70% of our students come from fatherless homes. And I understand the impact that has on student achievement. So I got together with a number of fathers where I live to create this organization that promotes positive examples of fatherhood, brings fathers together, celebrates fathers, gives them information on how to become a better father with the hopes of really increasing participation of those fathers who are kind of on the fence, trying to figure it out, going through issues maybe with the mother of their children or things like that. And we always say if you put the child first, and everything will fall into place. So glad to be here and glad to celebrate fatherhood on this Father's Day, Father's Week, Father's celebration.
All right. Kevin?
My name's Kevin Connolly. I'll follow the pattern. My dad's Ned Connolly from County Armagh, back in Ireland.
Old country.
The old country, sure. And I am the father of Patrick, Brian, and May Connolly, my three little guys and one little girl, or two little guys and one girl. And I'm a teacher in Chicago. I teach at John F. Kennedy High School down on the southwest side. I'm pleased to be here with my Peace Corps brother from back in the day. I knew him as Mpo. That was Chimangadzo.
That was 15 years ago.
Something like that. But
You all go way back.
We do.
Way back. Glad to see you, man.
Yeah, good to see you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Del.
It's a Delrick McCain. I'm actually going to break the tradition right now. I'm a Delrick McCain. I'm the father of Ella Sanal McCain. I too am an educator. I was 12 years in the classroom, both on the south side and west side of Chicago, including Boston, for a 1-year stint. Currently I work at the University of Chicago, the Network for College Success, and still working in the schools, bringing research and bringing data to schools so we can develop success programs for our young people. And I just want to appreciate this forum and this moment and platform just to talk about fatherhood, which is extremely important. not just to me, but like to have these discussions, especially regarding our community. And so, thank you.
Of course, I appreciate you being here. Corey?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Corey Hardiman, son of Michael Hardiman. They're all biological fathers. I happen to have what I call my bonus son, which is one of my former students, Javante Curtis. Was a student of mine. I decided to take him in, and now he's going into his junior year at Mississippi Valley State University. And a little bit about myself. I am the founder of Hope Dealers Incorporated, which is a non-for-profit that promotes positive mentoring for African American males and other young men of color to have positive outcomes despite their circumstances. And I also serve as a re-engagement specialist with the Chicago Public Schools. So basically the work that I do there is engaging 16 to 21-year-olds that have dropped out of school to come back to school and graduate with their high school diploma.
I think the work that you all do is incredibly important. And you don't see a lot of men in the education space. And I think it's a place where they're sorely needed because you serve as role models, you serve as examples, and I think that that's so important. Now, some of you guys mentioned who your dad was or other father figures in your life. We were talking about this earlier today about how fatherhood and examples just for parenthood, right? I'm a mom. The examples for parenthood begin as a child. It's in many ways it's how you're raised. Who are your parents? What was the dynamic you experienced? And I can tell you a lot about who you are or things you've overcome as a result. Does anybody want to talk about some of those examples or talk about your father or people who influenced you to be the father and the educator and the influencer that you are today?
Well, I'll start. I think a lot of people come to the work around fatherhood because they want to respond to maybe a negative situation they had in their own life. Well, my father wasn't around, so I want to be that father. I'm sort of the opposite. My father and I were very close up until his death a couple of years ago, and so I don't come from a deficit. I come from this, hey, I wish everyone had the same experience I had. I wish everybody could wake up in the morning from a text message or a phone call from your dad the way I did. I wish, everyone had the experience I had with my father coaching my Little League team, my father taking me down south to his family's farm and showing me what life was like for him. Because I know that if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be where I am today. And if we all were a little bit more cognizant of the importance of our fathers and where we are today, that we wouldn't dismiss it as, well, I made it, I worked hard, and hard work, if they just work hard, it'll all work out. Like, no, there were men, my father and other fathers, my friends' fathers who were always there and always checking up on me, because your father's not going to be there all the time, right? And so you do need other men, like my barber, my middle school principal, my coach. All these men created a village around me. But my father, again, who's someone who grew up in New Jersey, a Marine, dealt with substance abuse, recovered from that, became very involved in my church, very involved in my life, moved me into Morehouse, and was at my wedding and every stage of life he was right there. And the question is, if he was not there, where would I be? And so the importance of how do we give that same experience to all the young men who don't have that right now and are looking for that.
I'll jump in too, and I'm super fortunate and blessed that my father is still alive, and I have a really great relationship with him. And actually, we still work together. I teach, but in the summertime, a lot I still do some work with my dad. He's a builder, and so I learned how to swing a hammer from him, and a lot of, and that's part of what I can appreciate about having this adult relationship with my dad, is the changing relationship that I had with my dad, and that's something that as a dad I want that with my kids, because I'm like, now I think about my kids, and like most of my conversations with my son Patrick are about shipwrecks and trains and cars and really cool stuff. But it's like I look forward to that growing relationship as he becomes a teen, and as he goes into adulthood. And I know that my relationship with my dad has matured and grown, and I've learned to understand him so much more as a man and what he's accomplished, and really see him as a person and not as this sort of statuesque dad figure. So it sounds like something's coming.
I think you relate more to your parents when you become a parent yourself, because you really understand some of the sacrifices that they made, and you also understand some of the things that they were trying to instill in us at the time. Hello. Hey, Lynn. Hey, guys. How are you?
Hey, Dana.
Hi.
Dana.
Do we have Charles and Chris on the phone?
Gentlemen. I was saying hi to the other gentleman.
Good evening.
Hey, Chris. How are you?
I'm all right.
Thank you so much for joining us. I know that you have a lot going on, and I really appreciate you being here with us tonight on the phone. Charles, are you there?
I am here and happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I know you, too, are very busy. I heard my girl Lynn in the background.
Yes.
Tell her I said hello. Thank you so much for being here. So, Charles, I want to start with you. Can you introduce yourself? Tell us your role in education.
Wow. Okay, to introduce myself. My name is Charles Asiandi. I have been an educator for over 22 years, and I've served in different capacities, from administration all the way to a teacher, coach, dean of instruction, so quite a bit of different roles, but in education, definitely.
And Chris?
Same here, Chris Robbins. Been in education, which makes 28 years for me. Started off as a substitute, teacher, dean of students, assistant principal.
And you both are fathers, correct?
That's correct. Yep. Father to two young boys, as I like to think. A soon-to-be 13-year-old and a soon-to-be 10-year-old. Yeah, I have one father, young baby. She'll be 16 months in high school.
Well, happy early Father's Day to you. Happy Father's Week to you.
Thank you.
Curtis, I want to go back to the Fatherhood Forum, and I just want you to explain again, why you started the forum.
Well, I think the Fatherhood Forum is in its title. A forum is an opportunity for men to come together and have conversations. I understand coming up that when you put men into a room together, barbershop, think of a barbershop, think of a place where people can actually, discuss the things that are on their mind. And when you're a father, there are things that you are wrestling with every day, how to parent the child in the new era of social media. Should I allow my son to play football? Debates on parenting. And so the forum is an opportunity for men to come together and have conversations that they may not normally have around women, and to discuss ways on how to become better fathers, talk about vulnerabilities, things that you're worried about, things that you're insecure about that maybe you are uncomfortable talking about. And so the forum, again, at its core is to improve student achievement. And so that's why we are strongly connected to the education system, because we understand that in order for our students to really get the most out of education, to really be as successful as they can, especially in a place where in our school system when we have roughly 16% of our teachers are men, so 84% of our teachers are women. So they're not really getting male educators at school. You're coming from a single parent home. How do we improve this and expect students to have the same outcomes that everyone else is? We have to create a forum for that, and men will be more likely to have conversations around other men and to be vulnerable. And so again, we have a series of conversations, opportunity to celebrate. Tomorrow we'll have our annual Fatherhood Forum Awards. We're going to honor over 100 dads. We've honored over 200 dads last year. And oftentimes, what they'll say is, Curtis, I do this every day. I love being a dad, but it feels good to be appreciated. So someone to say thank you. I get up early in the morning. I stay up late. I don't ask for a thank you. I don't want a pat on the back. But honestly, it does feel good being appreciated. And the kids feel good. The kids, they make signs, I love you, Dad, and they bring balloons. I mean, folks just cry. I mean, it's like it's graduation day for the dad. The first time in his life he got a thank you. And we do a big, and we put them on stage, and we have all the community come out, and we shake hands, and we put them on stage, and we say, if we are who we celebrate, let's celebrate men who are doing well and not just talking about the fathers who aren't.
And I think that's so important because I think parenting is a very thankless job, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kids are inherently selfish. And
Oh yeah.
Can we say that?
kids are inherently, yes you can on Day to Be a Day.
Were you selfish, Kevin? Were you?
And I think, I'm a part of a bunch of groups that support mothers. I've got a Spelman Moms group that a lot of my friends are in, and there's a lot of support there. I've got another group of friends, my Bad Moms group, where we support each other and have a good time. And I think it's very important for men to come together through something like the Fatherhood Forum and support each other as parents. Because parenting is hard. Go ahead, was somebody going to say something? It's one of the hardest things.
Yeah, I think I agree for the forum is excellent. And it's kind of ironic that he compared the forum to a place of comfort to men as a barbershop. My father was a barber and owned his own shop for over 50 years, and I could have done myself. So I spent a lot of time in barbershops growing up and listening to other men talk about some everything. So it's kind of just ironic that he mentioned that part of it.
Yeah, and it's a form of support. And I think a lot of, because just like a beauty shop or a nail salon or a spa, it's where a lot of people come to congregate and hang out, and you get the service that you're paying for, but you're also getting so much more in terms of just a time to commune, a forum to come together.
And then another, I was just going to say another interesting for me is that I'm 51 years old, and I have friends that, like I graduated from high school, but about the same age. But I got some of us with newborn kids, and some of us are grandparents. So, it's just how the times that becoming a father could come into your life. It become, for some of us, it's like some of my peers, it was very young. And for some of us, it was later in life. But, you still have these quizzes and go through all these things. And a trip going through them in different stages of your life.
That's true. There's no clock ticking for y'all. So you can have kids and be real old.
But that's exhausting.
It is exhausting. I definitely see a difference, feeling older now. My kids are coming into the preteen years, and they're not babies anymore. And so there's definitely, everybody's older. You're older, you're more tired.
You see celebrities and they'll have kids when they're like 65. And like Steve Martin, right? So Steve Martin never had kids, and now he's like 66 or something, and
George Clooney.
Yeah, a young wife has the kid. I feel sorry for that guy.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not had to help too, though.
I'm sure there's
a whole.
He's not staying up late. He's not getting up early.
There's a whole staff.
Get a whole team on board.
Yeah, and it happens, kind of like you said, friend of mine, first wife didn't want to have kids. Actually, I had two friends of mine. First wife didn't want to have kids. And, eventually they divorced. It was definitely a major contributor in their divorce. They remarried somebody younger, and now they got kids, so, yeah, it happens.
So we were talking earlier when we were thinking about some of the topics we want to talk about for the show, and then one of the things, I think you said it, Curtis, you said, this is a while ago, you said kids need a father that they can brag about. Does anybody want to address that? Tell me what that means.
I think when you think about right now, what is the examples of just like manhood, right? Like there's conflicting messages out there for our young people about what does it mean to be a man. And I think when we think about what wanting to be your child's role model, you want them to say that that's an upstanding guy, that's an upstanding person. And I mean,
he shows up.
Right. Yeah. And beyond that, like when he shows up with particular levels of integrity and ethics, and he shows up and he's accessible. He shows emotion that's healthy. I think I'm not going to get into the deep politics of it, but right now we're seeing poor examples of what it means to be a man. And I think that's something that's a really strong statement, that as a father, you are your first child's example of manhood, and your child's, like, you want to be that person who's a role model, an example that they want to at least follow after. In my case with a daughter, I can now see, I kind of want to be someone that she might want to hopefully find, partnership in, someone like that, like,
The examples.
The examples.
Yeah. You either become like the parents that you
don't want to.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Anybody else?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Chris?
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say.
just going to say.
Well, I'll just go. I think the idea of, I'm glad that Dale mentioned the idea of manhood, right? And so I think we have to understand that we have to talk about manhood and fatherhood in the same breath, and talk about education. So, I mean, if you see my shirt on TV, it says, define manhood, male educator. Like, what we try to do is say that teaching is not a woman's job, right? And so when you think about a young person wanting to become, teenagers, professions, how many of them say they want to be teachers? And those who don't say they want to be teachers is going to be in part because they are not seeing enough male examples of male educators. My whole life, the 12 years in kindergarten, I only had three male educators, and of those, only one male educator of color. And so, manhood, what does it mean to be a man? Again, you do what you say you're going to do something, you do it. You're accountable. You're present. These things have to be part of fatherhood, because being a father, just making a baby or paying child support or bragging about your kids on holidays is not fatherhood. That's not fatherhood. That's not manhood. And so I'm a kind of person. I was telling Chris, I'm getting old, man. I'm gonna start calling brothers out, bro. I mean, I know you get a little older, you start not caring about how people care. Because it's just too important. And I mean, all of us are in education, and we understand. We know the young boys and young girls who are suffering because of the father's not there. And it's really the onus is put on your doorstep as an educator to fill the gaps, to get the most out of a child who has issues with confidence about what they can be, about being abused, about a number of things. And so you all have to remedy that because of something else that's not there. We need to be holding these brothers accountable. That's what the forum is about. When you know your best friend, your frat brother, your cousin is not doing what he's supposed to be doing, you have to call him out.
One of my favorite things as a teacher is on report card pickup, and when you see dads come in and you see them, there's one father I remember vividly. He came in covered in drywall dust. The man came straight off the job site, showed up to talk to all of his sons, teachers, and have a conversation with us.
Exactly.
And this was a guy who he probably was on the job by 7 o'clock, 6:30 in the morning, hanging drywall, that's no easy thing, and showed up at that report card pickup. He was towards the end of it too. It was like 5:30, and I'm like, that to me is, if you want a symbol of what fatherhood looks like, especially when you're thinking of blue collar immigrant families, that's what fatherhood looks. And those kids look up to that, and that's for them. That's somebody that they want to aspire to, see that guy's dream through. He wants to see them, go on and go to college and do something. And that's, that's kind of my story. Like, my dad was the guy who showed up covered in sawdust at the report card pickup. He was out the door every morning by 6:30, off in the van. And, by the time I was old enough to haul lumber, I was out there with him, in the summers and on the weekends and stuff, and pushing brooms around. But it was just, it's instilled a sense of, there's work, there's just, there's time for fun, but we've got to get stuff done.
And there's some accountability when your dad's going to get your report card, when you know that both of your parents are engaged, and it's not a indirect line of communication, meaning like one parent is the one that interfaces with the school and then delivers that message to the other parent. Both parents are engaged, both parents show up, and it matters. I think it matters to teachers when you have parents that show up. It matters to students when you have parents that show up. I always talk about the welcome back to schools, or the open nights, or the anytime when parents are invited in, and you notice that, I know at my kids' schools, people are always leaving notes for kids, and my kids are in elementary school. I don't think they do that in high school. But people are leaving notes for kids, and the kids go in the set that example. And I think when men want to be leaders, that's you have to be, I think leadership starts first in your home. And you don't necessarily have to be, even in co-parenting, right? It doesn't even have to be a home that's got both parents living in it, but you can still lead your home. And that's a message that I want to get across to people, is that you can still lead your home and take initiative with respect to raising your children, even if you're not physically present in the home, with everybody constantly.
Yeah, both of you said some things that really, I want to piggyback on as well. One of them, the major thing was example. As a man, as a father, you end up being an example whether you want to or not, whether you realize it or not. So you have to really be conscious of how you carry yourself, how you present yourself. I think for the gentlemen that work in education, I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. I've been at these report card conferences, and so many times parents will come in and say, "Oh my God, you missed about it. My kid talks about you all the time." And you're going, it's usually always a kid that you don't think pay you that much attention, or even notice you that much. And and the mother's telling you all these things that this kid has said about you to them, or even the father sometimes. And so that always struck me as an educator. Like, you never know. You got to really watch how you carry yourself and how you be an example to other people, because they're always watching you. And then same thing as other gentlemen. My father was gone for his daughter. He was very serious about me and my sister's education. He would report cards come out, he'll look at them. You can have all days one day. He'd go, "That's pretty good, but what about that big?" And he would just always, hammer on to me. I want you to go to school. I want you to get an education. I want you to have to work for a living like I do. He would always tell my sister, "I want you all to go get an education. I want you to have to depend on a man to live." So, hearing him say those things, I remember I had a conversation with somebody years back, and he just asked, he said, "Well, when did you decide to go to college?" And I was like, there was no decision. That was the expectation in my house. So having that expectation our whole entire lives definitely made a difference, because the part of me going to college, it wasn't a decision. It wasn't, I think I want to go to college. This is the expectation, and that's what we did. So, yeah, definitely having that leader made a huge difference.
It was which college were you going to, not if, but which one.
Yeah.
And I like what you said about how kids are listening. They may not demonstrate that they're listening, but they are listening, and they're paying attention to everything you do, good and bad. And they tend to model that behavior whether they like it or not. As educators who deal with kids all the time, can you tell when there's a father present, when there's a father engaged?
Yes. Yeah.
And what does that look like when a father is engaged in the lives of of students?
Different by gender. I feel like
that's a good point.
For girls, I think girls who have fathers engaged in their lives and they have that loving presence of a male who just is unconditionally loves them, that it makes such a huge difference. The jerks don't get through to them. The boys who find their prey by, just being mean and
I'm
just
sure hoping so, Kevin. I'm sure hoping so.
Yeah, I'm just saying, that's you know what I mean?
That's real.
And I feel like those.
That's the goal, bro.
That's it. And it's like I think there's no better way to defend your daughter than to love the crap out of her, so that she knows when some jerk makes fun of her for something superficial and that, that she's just like, whatever. Like, leave me alone, I'm off. And that she has that inner strength, and she knows, she's like, yeah, whatever this clown says about me, that's nonsense.
I think it's good for confidence, self-esteem, self-awareness, and just a general sense of what male appreciation looks like, right? They watch how dads treat mothers or other women in their lives, and they also pay attention, obviously, to how they're treated.
I think one of the gentlemen mentioned this earlier. You want to set that example of this is what a man is, this is how a man is supposed to treat a woman. So your daughter was never for nothing less than that. And I think as fathers, that's what all of us want. I started, taking my little nails done and all these little things. And every year when I buy my wife a car for Valentine's Day, she gets one, whatever. She started even getting out of hand. I'm like, you get a man this and you can't do this. I was like, slow down, you don't do it. We gotta wait a minute. But it's that as a father, you want your daughter to know, like, this is what you can have. You don't have to settle for anything, less than what you deserve.
Yeah, I was about to tell a quick story that it was interesting how you framed that question, Dana. And my initial response, my gut response is like, you can definitely tell when the father's not present in a lot of situations. When I was teaching on the West Side, there was this young man who was a handful in the classroom, to say the least, and just in general. But he never crossed the line and crossed the limit. And that's what I was kind of always wondering what was up with that. Until his father actually came from a report card pickup, and he was recently released from prison. He had been gone for about 5 years, right? And his father was just naming the fact that my point is I have to make up for 5 years right now. And my goal and my role right now is to make sure that he understands that whatever happened previously, it doesn't matter. We're proceeding forward, and I have expectations. Yeah. And that young man showed up with the father's expectation, despite the fact that he really wanted to cut out, as some young folks want to, right? Mm-hmm. But he never crossed that line. It was the actual just presence of, and it wasn't that his dad was just home. It was the fact that he was showing up at schools and saying, "I'm taking an active role in setting my expectations."
Because you could still be there and still not care.
Yeah.
And I think that makes a difference when you show up. Yeah. So if people can come out of prison and pick up report cards, I think everybody can be more active and engaged in these lives.
And there's trust. I think to Dell's point, I was in the classroom, I taught in the 8th grade. There were certain students I could tell had trust issues, disappointment. Both male and female, boys and girls, where you have a father who says, "We're going to come pick you up," doesn't come. Or a mom who has many different men coming in and out, and the men that you see don't see you as who you are and the age you are, and so you just trust all men, all authority coming from men. There's some examples of young men who I knew were, I don't know if their father wasn't around, but it was clear they were not connected to their father to the point where they would come and they would just stand next to me. They would look at me, kind of like, they were like studying my face. They look at my shoes. And they were smelling my cologne. I could tell that they did not have a lot of proximity to men because they were looking at me like I was strange, and they'd ask me questions like, "So what is that? Like, how to tie a tie, or why do you wear your shoes that way, or why do you do things that I talk to my son about now, and he's 10, but these were like 13 and 14-year-old kids who was clear they were trying to discover the world or discover their manhood through outside of the home, because their mother, the mother can love them, but she can never teach them to be a man. That's more than I can teach my daughter to be a woman.
That's right.
But that absence of training up to be a man, they sought that out, and I appreciate them doing that. But I had to also warn the women, he's fine. Mr. Valentine, tell him to sit down. No, he's fine. He's not doing anything wrong. Let him sit here. He wants to talk to me. And sometimes they wouldn't even ask me a question. They would just sit there and wanted to look at me and study me and look at my beard and look at my mustache or look at some razor bumpers or just something, because they were looking at this from the outside. And again, all of us who had fathers, imagine what that would be like, of not having that constant man in the mirror every morning, looking at him, putting his shoes on, going, pulling a chair out for a woman, bringing the groceries in, taking the trash out, things that we take as sort of second nature, but is absent from as many in Chicago. A recent data I saw was half the city's public school students are coming from fatherless homes, if half the city is going through that, what does that mean for education? What does that mean for level of depression? What does that mean for man? What does all the different things that we need to be a community mean if we don't have that in the home? And I mean, Corey, you do this every day, man. I mean, what do you see in your community as it relates to fatherhood and fatherlessness, man?
So I was sitting here taking it all in, but working at the far south side, Robles and Team Inglewood high schools, where about 90% of students are coming from fatherless homes and raised not by mom but grandma. You know, they're being raised by grandma, so grandma walking them to the school, grandma coming for discipline. So, and they have, that's why I was talking with Dale about earlier, like before kids even want to be taught, they want to know, can they trust you? Do you love them? So there's two things that I always tell people, even when I interview, is that kids come to school for either to be loved or to be taught. And most of the times when you teach in the inner city, they come in for both. So they want to be taught and they want to be loved because they've never been loved before. The young man you're describing, they sat by you, they looked at you, they studied you because they like, do black men really exist? Like older men? Like I see my peers, but do older men even exist? So they sit and they study you and they just look at you because they're really admiring you. They're like, dang, this is a black educated man. Like, no one in my family, like, I didn't see that. And also listening to your story, you know, listening to the things of saying, like, watching your dad get dressed for work. I've never seen my dad go to a 9 to 5 till recently. My dad did 15 years in federal prison. And growing up, most people would say that I should have went down the direct path that he did. So my job in schools that I work in, a lot of kids, when you become college educated, kids look at you like you don't understand our struggle until you have that one-on-one conversation with them and tell them how you grew up also boiling water to put in the tub because your heat was cut off. And they then begin to look at you like, you really been through that? Because there's this utopia where kids just like, you haven't been through the struggle because
you don't know
now you have a degree. Yeah.
Right.
So you have to be realistic and you have to be 100 with them at all times.
And I think it's good to be transparent.
Absolutely.
Because it gives them the notion that what we've done is attainable. You know, we're not perfect. You know, my parents divorced. Everything isn't given to us on a silver platter, right? And even if you do come from a 2-parent household, that doesn't always mean that everybody's present, right?
Yes.
And so everybody has their own struggles. And when I do mentoring and things like that, I try to impress upon people that you're not alone in terms of overcoming struggles. Everybody faces problems. It's about what you do with them is what matters. And one of the things that I've learned and through my mentoring is with students, because I did a lot of pro bono work in law school in the juvenile defense program. A lot of young boys, a lot of people had been abused, abandoned, and abuse begets abuse. Hurt people hurt people. And what I noticed is that trust obviously was a huge issue, but also it was just the investment of time. So I found myself clocking a lot of hours working, but really just spending time. It wasn't legal. It was just taking time because no one had taken the time. And so I just think, and you don't get that time back. And that's another thing that, you know, I hope we impress upon people tonight. Thank you for sharing the show. Thank you so much for tuning in, because the time you spend is invaluable. Kids grow up so fast. And if you miss just quality time, spending as much time with your kids as you can, it doesn't always have to be a trip or a vacation. It could be just simply reading. You know, as a parent, I didn't fully appreciate how much reading you needed to do at home with children to make them better readers in school. The kids who read at home, there is a difference between the kids who read at home and the kids who don't. 20 minutes a day. 20 minutes a day makes a huge difference for developing reading skills. And these are things that people don't know.
My pediatrician, so my son Patrick was born, and my wife, she's in medicine, and the pediatrician was like, well, start reading right away. And, you know, I'm like, okay, I'm an educator, I totally appreciate that. So I'm reading, you know, the little, you know, the books about blue hat, green hat, orange hat, oops, whatever. And, you know, reading this to a neonate, and they're just sort of just sitting there like just drooling and occasionally crying, and you're just reading away. And then what happens, there's right around maybe about 4 months, 4.5 months, a little hand reaches out and turns the page.
That's right.
And it's just like, oh, what? this, oh wow, like you're paying attention.
Watch them out now.
Like, this is how, like the baby gets it.
They're
the
paying
baby
attention.
understands and wants that next page, and then, you know, around a year and a half, they start saying the words. They say, you know, which, you know, the little words that they'll say. Those little, and the way but then you start understanding how these books are made. You're like, oh, this book has these little points in there, like the caterpillar, pop out of the egg, and then right when it's about time to say pop, pop, out comes that, you know, from a 1.5-year-old, and it melts you. And yeah, and like those are the experiences as a parent, as a father, that I cherish, and like, yeah, I can't strongly recommend it enough. And it does. It feels at first you're like, this is silly. I'm reading to somebody who has no idea what's going on, and yet it is. That little brain's getting it.
They're paying attention.
Yeah.
They're paying attention.
Yeah. And Dan, I got to say this because I think it's a sentiment that I've heard over and over again. It's an underlying idea. It's that caring, right? Everything that I've heard, whether it's being the mentoring, whether it's being a father, you know, making sure that you come to parent conferences, even though after you've worked 20-something hours in the day, or whether it's making sure that I read to my child at night, or whether it's, you know, talking to the kids on the schoolyard and kind of imparting some wisdom to them, and then keeping it 100 and making sure that they understand that, hey, you also have a, you know, a story to tell. You came from some of the same backgrounds. It's about caring. Kids know when you care. Kids know when you're, you know, taking a funk, and they know when you are a caring person who's willing to go that extra mile and make sure that, you know what, you do whatever it takes to see them succeed. So I can't stress that enough. It's really, a lot of this is about that caring.
Yeah, I appreciate that too, because one of my mentors was actually one of my first principals. I always looked to her for a lot of wisdom, and I actually just told the story today too. It used to frustrate me when I was in my 20s and first in the classroom when she would say that you really don't understand education and teaching until you're a parent. And I wasn't even thinking about kids at that time, so I'm like, wait a minute, I feel like I'm a pretty decent educator. But when you actually take your child on and you understand how high the stakes are, you're saying that your role as an educator is extremely important because of that relationship building, and that young people just want someone to build a good, strong, adults to build a good, strong, healthy relationship with. And the stakes are so high, you understand that what do you want for your kid? You want somebody who's loving and nurturing, but also holds high expectations for your child as well. So I think you get a different understanding of what it means to be this role as an educator once you definitely step in the shoes of a parent.
I think that's absolutely true. I think that's absolutely true. I wanted to go back to something that where we talked about time and time spent, and I think, how do you think? Because I think a lot of children spend a lot of time these days on social media, and at a very young age. There's a lot of technology and social. It's not just social media, but technology like cell phones and things like that. Do you think that? How do you think that has impacted kids and students?
Well, I'll say with my children, a couple of things. There's some pros and some cons to it. One of the cons is self-image, right? And so my daughter's online looking at girls dancing, singing. My daughter wants to dance, wants to sing. And she looks at how they look, right? Now, if you're on social media, you're taking pictures, everything is cropped, everybody's makeup is nice, everybody's hair is perfect, and so her aspirations are unrealistic. You want to look like something that's not. They may not look like her, may not be the same race, may not have the same background.
They got that strong filter game going.
Strong filter game going, and so that's her goal. And so on the other end, we see a lot of young children, her generation, who are being entrepreneurial with the social media. And so I'll say, Ivy, my daughter Ivy, you've been watching a YouTube video of a girl playing with her dolls. And the girl has like 2 million followers. And she's making money. I said, well, why don't you make a video of you playing with your dolls? And you get your own YouTube show. Or you do a YouTube show where you and your brother are making slime. You all make slime anyway.
Right.
And so to make a lot of you ruin my kitchen anyway, so let's just make some money on it. But I think at least they're exposing them to opportunities that I think I never had, and to worlds I never had. And so I embraced the internet. I embraced certain YouTube videos. But at the same time, to the point we mentioned earlier, I, as a father, have to keep reinforcing to her, you are beautiful just the way you are. I love you. You're strong. You're just like your mother. I mean, I compare her to her mother, to all her ancestors, her grandparents, who she is. I speak life into her dreams. What you see on social media, you may see that. You may want, you want your hair longer. Your hair is beautiful just the way it is. And Dad loves you. But at the same time, there are opportunities for you to benefit from the examples you see from young people who are using it to benefit. And I appreciate them taking their hobbies and using it as an entrepreneur, because they can't do it. But I think it just makes it more important for me as a father that I'm more consistent with what I celebrate in her and in my son at the same time. When I'm telling him it's good to be an athlete, but what about being a sports agent, right? You know, sure you want to be a quarterback, but what about owning a team? And just saying that, you know, just putting that little piece into it, that you're getting out of the stereotypes of what it means to be a young black boy, to be an athlete, or a young black girl to be a musician. Let's speak outside of those things, because all social media is going to do is really reinforce lives that I think are unrealistic, and most people would agree.
I feel like the social, or sorry, my kids aren't old enough for social media yet, thank God. 6 and no Facebook page yet. But at the same time, I think there's some technology. I think with little ones.
You're a high school teacher.
I'm a high school teacher, and I certainly see it on that. And it's funny, too, because I kind of agree with what Curtis was saying, where it's like, there is the entrepreneurial end of it. I had one of my students who, he has a book on he's selling a book. It's a published book, and it is literally the letter L. And it's just like in there's like a page where the letter L is written. Yeah. And he's published it, and he's had a few dozen people buy his book about the letter L.
Buy the L and take it. Sponsor for the evening.
Yeah, and I'm like, but it's like, I think they understand the absurdity of it on a level that maybe the adults don't, and they kind of get, they get that they're in on a joke in a way. And also there's the social aspect. You know, like I was real critical of a lot of the boys that I teach because of Fortnite. Fortnite literally just like swept across the teenage landscape, just like this amazing wave that just, they all got swept up in it. And in one sense, I'm like, oh, that's such a waste of time. But in the other sense, I'm like, this is a huge part of their social world. This is their Mario Brothers. This is their cultural touchstone. That in 20 years, Zelda, right? You're gonna need to drop Fortnite references in the boardroom, and that's what's going to make the difference between you getting some deal and not getting the deal. So they do need to have access to that. So you can't be complete, I know that. But little ones, to me, the concern is like, as a parent, when you come home, you're exhausted, and the kids are like keyed up because mom and dad are home and they're going crazy, and it's so tempting to just be like, take the iPad, play Angry Birds for the next hour and leave me alone. But it's like that's time where you should be engaging. You should.
And I think it's important as parents to help your kids navigate the world of technology and social media, because there's what scares me as a parent is the accessibility, right? They can take pictures of things they shouldn't be taking pictures of. They can receive pictures of things they shouldn't be receiving. They can have access to people who they shouldn't have access to things, communications, chat rooms, all different types of things. And it's being present as parents, right, that helps kids navigate, should you really be looking? Is this appropriate? That kind of thing, and helping them understand to set standards for themselves.
Yeah, my goal is that my kids, when they get there, that they see me as somebody that they can take it to and they can talk to. And I'm sure it's going to hit that teenage wall where they're like, yeah, no, Dad. And that'll happen. We'll work through that. But my hope is that they trust me, that they feel comfortable enough with me, that there is that relationship where they feel like, all right, they're not sure if something's okay, and they actually ask me.
Yeah.
I was going to pretty much say almost the same thing you did. The good and the bad about technology and social media is the amount of information that you have at your fingertips. And as a parent, what you have to do is be there to kind of filter that information. What's good, what's bad. Like all of you are saying, hopefully that when they come across something that's questionable, they comfortable enough with you to talk to you about it, and for you all to talk through those things. For my daughter, certainly, I told her no Facebook page, because that was the other negative thing I was going to say about Facebook a little later. But she's done a lot of things from YouTube. She'll see something on YouTube how to make this, how to do this. She'll go try it. So that part of it, I love for her that, you know, she sees these creative things on YouTube and she's willing to try. The negative part, and what kind of ties into the Facebook part, is that kids now don't know how to socially interact to solve conflict. Yeah, like they once do. All this Facebook beef, you know, people could be tough on Facebook and over line. I'm sure all of you that work at school deal with this all the time. I think escalate, and all these people get drawn into conflicts because it's on Facebook. And one of the things I always tell students when they have these Facebook conflicts, and it's the same thing that's texting, you can't determine people's intent through a Facebook message or a text message. Somebody could say, hey, what's up with you? And deliver it like that, and you read it as, hey, what's up with you? Right. You know, and so now, depending on what kind of mood I'm in, I'm receiving what you're saying in a way that you totally may not have meant it. And so you always have these conflicts escalate because you're not dealing with them in person. So that part of Facebook and social media drives me crazy.
And it can be dangerous.
Well, just in technology in general, I think we all recognize, especially as educators, right, that it's a huge piece. Like, for us to just say, oh, we don't need it, would be crazy. Like,
right,
you know,
of course.
I love seeing it in the classrooms, right? I love seeing students use it, become comfortable with it, and then take it and then apply it to different problems and tasks, and just, you know, broaden their mind. So I think in terms of technology, it's a great thing. My only concern with it, I think, would be is just the interactions that we seem to have lost as humans. And I think, you know, we just talked about some of the issues you have with social media, not being able to solve conflicts because, right, social media has crept up. But just that human interaction and just that human contact of getting to know each other. Like, I mean, we go to the dances now, and it's like, I still remember when all of the kids were in the, you know, the middle of the dance floor dancing with each other and talking to each other. And now all it is, hey, baby, can I get your Facebook name, and, you know, I will contact you like that. And then they go across the room and then they Facebook
look each other up.
Or Instagram the whole time. You know, I haven't learned how to talk to a girl. I haven't learned how to interact with her. So it's just a lot of things that I am concerned about with all of the different social media and technology that has burst on the scene. That it's kind of taking a human interaction away, and it's lessening our experience with each other. So I think that's the biggest thing that I fear as we move forward.
Yeah, people pulling out their phones, recording it rather than living it.
And living it,
you know,
Do it for the ground.
it's crazy. It's like
It's true.
you see every day, a person got their phone out and telling everybody else things, but they're not experiencing anything.
That's right. How do we help dads become better dads?
Well, I mean, I think it begins with what we're talking about now, which is celebrating positive stories about all the great things that we get from being a father. I mean, I look forward to seeing my kids come home every day like it's Christmas for me. And so I talk about that in a way that I don't think my dad talked about it. I'm positive he felt the same way, but he was not able to articulate it. Because back then, our fathers, men didn't talk about emotions. Men didn't talk about feelings. And so I think it starts with us being more open and transparent about how we feel about our children, about our dreams for our children. I think it also is beginning with a little bit of time. I think oftentimes men will say, you know what, I'll get more involved with my kid's life when I get a better job, when me and the mother are better. Years go by, and years go by, and you miss that.
Kids are watching too.
And so it begins with a text message. For those who have children who are teenagers or even adults, how you doing? How's it going? I heard some new, and so it's about being consistent with that, just being. So I mean, a lot of them know they might not want to have dinner with you. They might not want to have a long conversation. They just want to know, are you there? Are you accessible?
consistent?
Are you accessible? If I need to reach you, will you be there for me? And so don't wait until everything is perfect. Don't wait until you move next door. Just be there now. No matter what you have, just be there now.
I would say that to your question. I love this question. How do we help dads be better dads? Is we need to sell it harder. Like, not to like go out and make lots of kids, but like sell the idea of like
Become a dad tonight.
Good gentleman.
Or at least try.
Sure, why not?
Happy Father's Day.
Right. Why not just make more? But anyway, sell the idea of fatherhood, sell the experience of it, right? I was at the Kennedy graduation tonight, so go Crusaders. And on my way out, I ran into one of my colleagues' husband, and he was out there with their brand new 6-week-old, and the baby had been fussy in the graduation, so he took him out into the hallway, and he was holding the little guy, and the baby was sleeping, and I was just asking him, this is their first one, I'm like, how you doing? How do you like it? And he's like, it's an adventure. And I just was like, yeah, that's the perfect way to put it. It is an adventure, It's this amazing adventure of building this relationship, building this, being this absolutely central role in this little person's life. Because at this point, the show is about that little boy. It's, as an adult now, I'm 40 this summer. It's not the Kevin Conley show anymore. It's the Patrick, Brian, and May show. And I got to do my part to help them up and help them have the best lives they can. And the great thing for me, the adventure for me, is playing that supporting role, being there, being the dad there. That's an awesome experience. And so, I think some people have this idea of fatherhood as a burden, as this huge responsibility, but it's an adventure. It's this exciting, amazing thing. So,
And I think parenthood is incredibly rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
The more you get in it, the more you put in it, the more you get out of it.
I also think that forms like Kurt is establishing and working with is really important for us too, because I think it's just what some of the socialized norms are as far as being a man and being in the role of just of a father. You think you have to be perfect, and anybody knows with this parenting thing, it's hard to be perfect.
Of course.
But where do you actually process the emotions about the imperfections of this and the stress and struggle of that? And if there's not opportunities for us to, share that, hey, listen, this is rough, and like professionally I got to show up perfect, and in other roles in my life I got to try to show up perfect, that hey, listen, there's opportunities for you to grow, and then you have people who have common experiences of like imperfection with this fatherhood stuff, and it's okay, so I think that's also something that's really, I appreciate the Fatherhood Forum for just being a space for us to say, hey, listen, we can process both the role of parenting and the emotions around parenting.
And also show the fatherhood fails too, right? So there's a big movement now on social media to post pictures of fathers and their kids, right? And there's and I appreciate that. But also show pictures of you trying to do the diaper thing and it didn't work, or trying to heat up the milk, or trying to put together the dollhouse on Christmas Eve and it doesn't work. We all know that. We all kind of feel alone. Maybe you have a couple of boys you talk to about, some of your buddies, but talk about every aspect of it. But in the end, round it out and saying, this is how much I appreciate it. And most of the guys who are not involved, I believe, have a negative experience with their own fathers. And they talk about, don't you wish you had this opportunity? Here's your second chance to give your child whatever you needed.
Right.
And so you have an opportunity to do better. And so even myself, my father was an amazing father to me, but I'm trying to do better for my son, my daughter. How can I be a better parent to support their dreams than my father could, or my father knew? He was limited by what he knew. I have a lot more access to information. I have a lot more resources. Let me do that for my children, and then hopefully they'll do it for their children, because that'll be my legacy. That'll what they're remembered by. My dad did this for me, and they'll be able to brag about me to their friends.
Yeah, I think everybody's been kind of touching on what I'm going to say. That's the time that you can give to your kids. I think a lot of times as fathers, we're caught up with the kind of stereotype that the dad's supposed to be the provider and be able to provide and buy these things for their kids. But I guarantee you that a kid would rather have you there than at work, at certain events in their life. You know, I remember growing up playing Little League Baseball and stuff like that. And all the kids' fathers would be at the game, and my father would be at work. You know, and I knew he was at work. And I knew what he was doing. I knew how important it was for him to be at work, but I still wanted him at the game just like all the other kids' fathers.
Right.
And a lot of other kids I talked to, you know, what they say more than anything, you know, when they talk about their fathers not being fathers, is, I remember that time he said he was going to come take me here or come pick me up or come do this, and he didn't show. They talk about that way more than, oh, at least he sends money for me to get shoes or for me.
Right.
You know, I rarely hear kids say, my dad ain't there, but at least he sends the money. They're gonna say, you know, my dad picked me up and took me wherever when he said he was going to do it. So, and because like all you, none of us are perfect in being fathers. There's no books. There's no, you know, I tell people all the time, you have to take classes and pass courses to do everything, drive a car, to own a gun, to do that. And they just let anybody be parent. And so there's nothing out there really to say this is how you be a parent. So we all make mistakes. We all learn as we go along. But it's good just being there to make those mistakes. I think people rather have, kids rather have that than you not be there at all.
And I think that's the aspect of parenting that's priceless, is giving the time and being there. My last question for you gentlemen is, what is your favorite thing about being a dad or an educator and your influence on this next generation?
I'll start that off. Being young and in education, it's like you only like 10 years or 8 years older than some of your students, and just seeing that difference of time span. So really being able to, sometimes you just go home like, damn, I really influence your life that much. Like at the end of the year, the kids hate you like throughout the whole school year, especially when I was dean of students. So the kids really didn't mess with you during the school year, but when it's time to get that letter, when it's time to get out for summer break and they write one person that has impacted their life the most, and it's mainly, you get a letter from Tommy saying, Mr. Hardeman impacted my life because I know I was supposed to be suspended, but instead we had a heart-to-heart, and I never was able to express myself before. So stop being so quick to run to suspending kids and be more there to speak with them about what's really going on, because Tommy only acted out because last night he didn't eat, and this morning he had to be there for a test, and he missed breakfast because he had to get the other 4 siblings ready. So just being able to have that heart-to-heart and that influence and see it all play out.
Thank you, Corey.
Yeah, I think similarly too, like the privilege of just getting access to their world and then the opportunity to possibly influence their worldview. Young people are amazing. And I guess say my daughter, how she's even perceiving the world. She's 5 going on 6, well actually 5 going on 20 something. But just the fact that you're giving me a chance just to get access to your world. And I when I was in the classroom, I used to measure the value of my day between how many meaningful conversations I had with a young person. So I think that part is just the brilliance of both education and being a parent, just that access to their world.
That's awesome. Thank you, Dale.
I think for me, it's just that feeling of just satisfaction with where my life is and what I'm doing, and this feeling of fulfillment, you know, like both being as a teacher and being as a parent. You know, as a teacher, you know, it's like I could push for administration, I could push, you know, maybe go into the private sector, do something, maybe, you know, but I'm like, no, being in the classroom, that's where it's at. And you know, I often feel like I'm like everybody else in education is like in the service end of it. Like that's you know, I'm the guy in the front lines, and I love that. I love that day-to-day interaction with students. And you know, the more I do it, the more just like satisfied and happy I am with that career choice. And the same thing with being a parent and you know, sharing this amazing experience of parenting with my wife. And you know, like I'm super comfortable in my skin. Like I know who I am. I'm these kids' dad. I know what my job is, like to be there for them, to do all this goofy stuff and just have fun with them. And you know, it's incredibly liberating. Like all of that angst of like my 20s of like, what am I going to be and am I going to achieve what I want? It's all gone. Like I'm just really content in who I am and what I do.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks.
Charles?
I guess for me, it's like really, I don't know if I can answer that question, right? It's just so many different things. But for me, being the person that's always looking to the future, I think a lot of times it's never actually what's going on in the present. It's seeing that kid in the future, seeing your child in the future when they're successful, when they actually have the chance to look back and they're able to just communicate to you like, you know what, thanks for being in my life, thanks for caring, thanks for sharing, thanks for pouring in all of the love, knowledge, and support that you did over the years, and it's because of that, that's why I am where I am today. So for me, a lot of times, it's just seeing them in the future. It's just thinking of what the future is going to look like, and knowing that, you know what, I had a small part in that, and making this world just a better place in general.
Thank you, Charles. Chris?
Yeah, for me, it's similar to what Charles was saying, is that when kids let you know they got it, you know, and especially when it's down the line, you know, I run into students everywhere, like, even all over the country. Hey, this is Mr. Robin there, tell my wife, he's my favorite teacher. He took me out of time, he taught me this stuff. But more, and the odd thing about that, when kids speak of you as a teacher, and I'm sure all the other gentlemen experienced this, they never talk about academics. They never say, "Oh, I remember you told me how to do long division," or you told me, they talk about you, the kind of things you taught them about life and how to live and how to interact. And you know, they, you know, I'll never forget this you did for me during this time. And I'm going to pay you back one day. And I always tell them, I'm never in a position where I need you to pay me back. I'd rather you pass that on to somebody else that's coming up behind you. So that just moment when they let you know, hey, I got it. All of this you put into me, it wasn't for nothing. This is what I am as a result of. That's the big thing.
Thank you, Chris. Curtis?
Well, I'll say, I mean, we're all fathers and all educators in training, and we're all just trying to figure this thing out. I don't purport to be an expert in this. I'm just, every day I learn a little bit more about how to become a better father, a better man, a better educator. And for me, the highlight is when I get the affirmation that what I was doing was the right thing, because you're never really sure, right? And so if you're teaching your child something, and then you see them do it, or you see them model it, or you see them tell another child to do something, that's the beauty. Or or I mentor a lot of college students. When I reach out to them and ask them how they're doing, and then maybe a month or so later, a couple weeks later, they say, "Hey," and they call me Uncle Kurt. I guess Mr. Valentine is too formal and Curtis is too informal. Uncle Kurt, hey, how you doing? How you been? How are things going? How the kid? And so they're modeling, just checking in. It's, hey, I realize you're human too. I know you're out, you're doing out there. I realize that there's a lot going on. You're always asking me how I'm doing, how are my grades, how my scholarship, how my summer job. How are you doing? And that's when I see, because all of us, we pour out as educators, as fathers. Our job is to pour, and we pour. Wake up in the morning, we pour. We get, go to school, we pour. The question I always ask men who I'm around is, who's pouring back into you? How do you fill your cup? And my children fill my cup when they say, "Dad, thank you. Dad, I appreciate it. Dad, what do you want? Dad, I made something for you. Uncle Kurt, I saw something. Uncle Kurt," things that I didn't prompt, but they were. So that learning, that affirmation is worthwhile, because that's the thing that, again, you never really know the impact you have until the brother mentioned earlier, until you see the person in the grocery store, until you see paper written down. You don't know. You pour so much out, but getting it poured back in is so fulfilling, and this gives you more to pour back. So we leave today so fulfilled having had this conversation that we're going to go out tomorrow and wake up and continue to pour and get poured back into us, because we know this is the work and we love to do it.
Well, I want to thank you all so much for being a part of this show. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much to our sponsors, GH Private Wealth Management, 800-591-6004, and the Homecoming Challenge, www.homecomingchallenge.com. Happy Father's Day. I think that this message is so important, so I appreciate everybody being here, from coming all the way from D.C.
Prince George's County.
And coming from the city, coming from graduations, participating by phone. You guys all have a lot going on, and I hope this show poured into you, because you guys have certainly poured into me and to other people, and it's just such a positive example of dads, educators, people out here doing good. So I just appreciate you. The Fatherhood Forum, the Chicago chapter,
Sign up, folks.
is now formed. But I appreciate it. I appreciate all that you're doing, and you all should know just how much people look up to you. They may not say it, you may not get a medal or an award, but it means so much, and it matters to so many people. So I thank you on behalf of Dana B and Dana. Thank you so much for
Thank you, Dana
being
B and
here.
Dana, for bringing us out. We appreciate you,
It's
Dana.
It's been a good reunion. It was just nice hanging out with you all today. I appreciate you all spending the evening with me. It was just fun to connect, so I appreciate you all. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you all so much for sharing. Next week, we're talking about a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. We're talking about special needs and the very special people in that arena. More than 1 billion people in our world are living with some sort of disability or special need. And this is a topic that I'm very familiar with. We'll be talking about it next week. Please tune in. Thank you for sharing. This is Dana B and Dana. Happy Father's Day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a wrap.
Awesome.
Dana B and Dana. Intellectual